Hey, Porchers, it's that time again. We got to thank our sponsors, and we got to thank the Fat Boy app, the one of a kind mom and pop restaurant located in Clay, Kentucky. Hey, listen, this is one of the greatest apps I've seen yet. This thing has so many benefits. You need to reach out to them if you have a restaurant, if you have a little bistro, a food truck. Get signed up because it's free. Free 99 to sign up if you own one of those. If you own a restaurant, a business that you want to, you get free promotion from them. And I don't know, understand why people ain't doing this. I don't understand why people ain't signing up. Listen, stop. Go sign up. Become a Fat Boy or Dining Diva today. Ironstein Coffee in Morganfield, Kentucky. Actually, I just went in and got a haircut from Jerry. We were talking coffee, and I left with the Morganfield blend this time. Usually, I drink the coal miner. It's a dark roast, but I thought, you know what? I want to get some Morganfield, so I got me some Morganfield, and they're brewing and they're roasting. Their coffee's right there in Morganfield. Step back in time when you go to Jen's General Store. Get some of the go. Listen, you want to talk about a calming, relaxing environment? Step back in time through the doors of Jen's. You're gonna find those old timey drinks, handmade milkshakes. My favorite thing to get there is a bologna sandwich and an L8. Absolutely love Jen's General Store, and she's got so much to offer there. If you haven't been there, you're missing out. Jake Wolf at Wolf's Customs. You want a lift put on your truck. You need a little engine work done. You want your oil change. You want some new tires. Mention you've seen this ad on the Front Porch America podcast to Jake. You're going to get 10% off a tire purchase. 10% off of a tire purchase. Man, if you got a low tire, stop in there and let him let him do it. He'll do it just real quick like that. Stephen Watson at Watson's Transmissions. Man, that man can tear down, pull out, rebuild, restock, restack, whatever you do with a transmission with one arm tied behind his back, jumping on a pogo stick blindfolded. He can. I bet he can even eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich while he's doing it. So check him out, Stephen Watson at Watson's Transmissions. This interview, I sit down with Megan Kirk, a nurse for probably over 10 years, have a conversation with her about her career, why she chose her career, a conversation about her mother, a conversation about the controversial awareness she is raising about local water and the quality of that water. And we all know once you kind of ruffle the feathers, things can come unhinged. Um, at one point in this interview, you'll see that, and I've shared the clip, you'll see that she fears retaliation. She finds a rock in her window, and thank goodness it turns out to be just the rock from her wonderful neighbor's lawnmower accident, obviously. But we cover a lot of topics we discuss for around 2 hours, and it's such a heartwarming and inspiring story to hear from Megan. So I'm going to shut up and we're going to get into it. So, welcome to Front Porch America. And today I have a very special guest who's kind of been in the spotlight for the last few weeks. And she's coming to us from Crittenden County. That's your hometown. That's where you grew up.
Yes.
That's my hometown. That's where I actually grew up.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
So, and that's why it kind of really piqued my interest. I've been seeing you on social media popping up quite a bit with this issue we're fixing to talk about. But
Yes.
before we do, and I apologize, I don't have a bag,
Oh
but
my
here's a
gosh.
gift. Every
Oh my
every
goodness.
every guest gets a gift.
Thank you
So,
so
well,
much.
just my appreciation for you taking your time out and come down and
I
sit with
love
me.
this.
So, I didn't know if you wore hats or not, but there you
I
go.
do. I
So,
do.
yeah.
Exactly like that.
So,
Perfect.
let's just get into this. I think the first post I seen was you being interviewed by a local news station. Okay.
Yes.
So we're going to talk about that. We're going to put all that together here in just a second. But I've got some questions that I want to know. So you're a nurse.
Yes.
How long have you been a nurse?
So, actually, in a few days, it'll be 10 years.
Oh, wow.
But I started whenever I was 18, actually, as a nurse aide, and I did the sleep studies, was a secretary. I kind of was in several different branches of departments um, until I graduated as a nurse. I spent my first year and a half at Crittenden County
Okay. Yeah.
Hospital.
Yeah.
I loved it. I had grown up with everybody there,
Right.
so
And nothing beats that little hometown feel.
oh yes,
That's
I loved being able to see people that I knew and make them feel comfortable that
People, yeah, you know, you grew up with these people, or you know their parents and grandparents, so they felt like they probably had some kind of trust when they came in and you were there. So
there was never a patient that I couldn't correlate it to somebody that I knew.
right, yeah, that's
So,
really cool.
yeah.
So, what made you become a nurse?
Um, so it actually started when I was nurse aiding. It's kind of funny. My sister started before me. It was year 2008. So literally, I have worked in the hospital setting only for half of my life. You
Okay,
know, I'm 36, and so literally half of my life I have worked in the hospital full time. But whenever I was nurse aiding, at first I really didn't think I had the gumption or was made of the material to do it
right,
because, um, but the minute I did and I tried it and I went for it because my dad was encouraging me, I just loved it. I fell in love with it. I tell a lot of people, like, you know, I worked night shift, and so I would have patients to where, you know, they're nervous or they're scared, you
right.
know, and sick and don't feel good. And so even just being able to help them go get up and help them to the restroom, you know, was like very rewarding for me. And I'd always been a waitress. And so it was the first time like I felt like I was able to help somebody. And there's a lot of conversations that go on in that
You
2
know, that's
a.m.,
yeah, that's
you know, when they
funny.
call.
Um, in the nursing world, and so I've worked in the ER as a tech, and I work on the ambulance. And the
Okay.
conversations, well, especially on the in EMS, when you go to these people's houses, you learn so much. A lot of
Oh, yeah.
stuff you don't want to know, but you
Yes.
learn that, you know. And then for the
It's
few
personal.
minutes, yeah, for the few minutes that we are in direct care with this patient, they open up. A lot of them open up to you. Some of them won't, you know, and that's everywhere. But for the most part, they mostly, I mean, a lot of them open up and they'll tell you everything, you know.
Yeah.
You ask them what their chief complaint is, and you're going to get a story from 10 years ago leading
Oh,
up to
yeah.
that chief complaint. But it's awesome. Um, it's just one of those things to where it's a thankless job to an extent, but it sounds like you've always been some sort of a servant to people. So, you
Yeah.
know, starting out as waitressing, and then now you've kind of transitioned over. And I noticed before we started recording, you were talking about you've kind of taken on a new role, different nursing aspect.
Yes.
So, what is that?
Oh, okay. So, I actually am starting to do like IV therapy.
Okay.
Um, I just want people to feel their best, you know, and it's kind of like a bigger thing in bigger cities. And so I was like, I can do this, you know. It's been harder too. I lost my mom 2 years ago. So, um, seeing people sick, especially young people, has really bothered me. I'll take it home with me.
Yeah.
And it just got to the point where I was like, I need to change. And so this has been so rewarding because I specifically wanted to be located in Marion so that it was my community that
Yeah.
I would be seeing the most. But yeah, it's for patients that may have like the stomach bug or the flu and get dehydrated. I can go out to their house or they can come to me and I can make them feel better without having an ER visit. I'm starting to do like high dose vitamin C, and that's targeted towards like patients who are actively taking chemo. It's a more holistic approach, some would say, but
Right.
not really. It's ascorbic acid. You know, we have a lot of research that we're doing right now, specifically for pancreatic cancer, because most of the time that's not a good prognosis for
Right.
that. So yeah, research is showing that doing high dose vitamin C in, you know, correlation with your chemotherapy, can actually help.
That's interesting. That would be cool, and it's really cool that you're able to bring it back to the hometown, and service that area. And obviously, like you said, you travel, you'll go to different other, you know, different
Yeah.
places, and I highly expect. So I know in Evansville that they have a few of those, and I work with a lot of people that talk about the IV therapy, and it's growing, but it would be really neat to see it kind
It
of just
works.
yeah,
It works. You know, if you really think about what we eat on the daily and, you
right.
know,
Well, so
um,
I have Hashimoto's disease, so it's the
okay.
thyroid,
Yes.
right? So I take a pill every day. My vitamin D is like, but just tanked, so I take a vitamin D and a B12 pill. And there's some days to where it's just like I'm so exhausted, I have to literally make myself do anything.
Yeah.
So, and I've been trying to figure out something that would, maybe
Well, I
work.
actually have somebody right now that she comes and sees me weekly. I give her vitamin D injections. We're about to start next week, vitamin B12. Um, and it's safe because I have a nurse practitioner over me. She reviews everything.
Oh, nice.
And we kind of just work in tandem together. But so we get lab results to make sure you're deficient in whatever it may be, and then I can order medicine and be able to give you that without you having to pay like a clinic bill or a doctor's office
Right.
visit, whatever it may be. Um, but yeah, so holler at me.
Yeah, I will. So, are you going to be able to, like, are you going to take insurance, or does insurance
That's
cover that,
the
or
thing.
you're just
They
trying to figure it
have
out?
the worst luck with insurance
Yeah.
because, and I say this all the time, sickness is profit.
Right.
I've worked at the bedside, like I said, since I was 18 years old. I'm 36. Um, the people that work inside hospitals care so much. You have a few, just like
Right.
you do in every career, but yeah, we care, and sometimes too much. But we want to make you better, but at the same time, anymore, it's like they just want to throw another pill at you,
Right.
and sickness is profit, and so insurance. It's funny because they actually taught me in my schooling about curcumin in IV and how it can actually take away cancer.
Oh, wow.
It's not allowed here. It's allowed in Europe.
I wonder why. you know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it was funny because I'm like, why are they teaching me this stuff if I'm literally not allowed to do it here?
Yeah.
And so I believe in the high dose vitamin C, just for the sheer fact that vitamin C actually looks like fructose. And so the cancer confuse it because we know cancer loves sugar.
Right.
So the cancer will actually confuse that vitamin C with a fructose molecule because they look almost identical. And so when that cancer cell, what we call uptakes it, it literally destroys that cancer cell from the inside out. Like yesterday, I did 25,000 milligrams of vitamin C over a 2 hour span. Diluted it extra too because she was my first one.
Right.
And they signed consents,
Right.
but yeah, I just love, I've had so much positive feedback about it. And so it's nice to kind of offer like an alternative route to go for
Yeah.
your health to feel better because we really don't get the vitamin and nutrients that we need
Right. Yeah.
by eating.
By the time we get our food, is so processed, and it's just like all the good stuff's actually finally taken out of it, I guess. Man, that could be a whole nother podcast. So,
Yeah.
like, I'm excited. Have you named your business yet?
Yes, I actually
All right.
did.
What's the name?
It's Magnolia House Beauty Co.
Okay.
The reason I went with that was in honor of my mother. Um, her dream, she was a respiratory therapist. We
Mhm.
actually got to work together for years at
Oh, that's
Crittenden.
cool.
Yeah, it was. And she worked with my sister, so it was like a family gig. But no, so she always had this dream of having a restaurant, and she loved Magnolia flowers, and I could just remember all her passwords were Magnolia 1, Magnolia 2, and she just loved it, and so she named her restaurant Magnolia House.
Oh yeah, behind the McDonald's.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
well, I've ate there
the
several, or
the
used to eat
old
there.
Mexican
Yeah.
restaurant now.
Hmm.
My parents built that,
Okay, that's
and
right. I remember.
it was hard on our family.
Yeah.
I miss it sometimes, but it took a lot of family time away from
Yeah.
us, which is why we ended up closing it, and that's the only reason. But yeah, so when I was trying to think of a name, knowing that I would be really trying to target people who were starting remission, just got finished with chemo or were just beginning. I believe that I have things to offer that can make them feel better. And my drive for that is my mother, what I experienced with my mother over a 2.5 year time frame.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's why I
It's
named it
really cool.
that.
I'm gonna have to talk to you more about that off camera, because my mom's actually got adenocarcinoma right now,
Okay.
and she's got I guess it's an inoperable tumor right here.
I'm sorry to
So
hear that.
yeah, and she stays weak all the time now. She can't hardly eat, and so that I may be.
Well, and that's the thing
putting
too.
something
There's
together.
vitamins, like our B vitamins, that you can be given, that will help give you energy. We're probably all deficient
Oh, I
in so
guarantee it.
much.
Yeah.
But yeah, talk to me because I actually have special prices for chemo
Okay.
patients,
Okay.
patients with cancer, and that 2 year span when they're out of remission. I want to help make them feel better as quick as possible.
Good.
That would be my goal.
Well, let's get into the
Okay.
dirt. Let's get into the dirt, and it's really cool. That's like I always get excited for people that start their own businesses and start doing something they actually love. And I can tell you're very passionate about it, which is really cool.
Thank you. I am.
Um, so we got some notes, and usually I don't have papers, but this is a pretty serious thing, and I wanted to make sure I asked the right questions.
Well, and I typically have papers. You've
Yeah,
watched my
right.
videos.
Yes,
I
yes.
want,
So, and we'll
so I'm
handle
winging
this.
it today.
Well, we're gonna handle this how you want to handle it.
Okay.
Okay. So we're gonna make this your podcast for today. Um, we've got several questions here, and I don't want to get them. I kind of jumped, but why did you decide to test the water in Crittenden County?
Oh man.
Or should we explain what's going on?
Well,
I
it's such a
think.
loaded question because there's really about three reasons I tested
Okay.
my water. And that was kind of my thing today was I've really put out all the facts. Um, backed it up. I mean, I would print out papers and be like, you just so it was a visual, because my thing was, I'm digging for this, I'm researching this. Let me just give you the nitty gritty so that you don't have to do this for yourself. And so today I kind of wanted to make it more personal,
Yeah.
tell a little bit more of my story on why I'm passionate about this. Obviously, because of my mother, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to test the water. So, if you don't care, I'm just going to start off
Start.
telling a
Yeah.
little
Yeah. I'm
bit.
gonna sit here and listen. I'm gonna try not to interrupt you a whole lot because I
Oh,
want to
you're
hear this
fine.
story. I want
Yeah.
to hear. So just you start where you want to start, and you just talk, and we're gonna sit here and we're all gonna listen. So
Okay. Well, thank you.
you're welcome.
Um, so I was a nurse for about a year, and I was just kind of at a point in my life, single, no kids. I was like, I need to check out this travel nursing thing. So I finally took the leap. I was nervous as heck, but I just went after it. I loved it. I always say I don't know why people hire me as a travel nurse because by the time I leave, I've talked about 3 or 4 of their full time pay or
To
workers
going into it.
to do travel nursing. Um, but yeah, so I'd always pick places that I really wanted to explore, places like I would, go to vacation.
Right.
And so on my off days, I would go wander around and sightsee. And so I wanted it to be
It was
worth my time.
basically a paid vacation, if you will. Yeah. I
Literally,
mean, yeah. Okay.
which is what I would tell the full time staff
Right.
I ran into. I'm like,
Yeah.
y'all are doing it wrong. But, and then I would run into travel nurses and I'd be like, oh, yeah, where have you travel nursed? And they're like, Ohio. And no offense against Ohio, but I'm like, no,
Hey,
you need to go somewhere you want to.
I just came back from Ohio. Me and some buddies went up there to turkey hunt, and it was like middle of nowhere, Ohio. It has beautiful country, but man, mountains and just trying
Was
to,
it
yeah, it was crazy. So yeah, yeah, I'm with you on
okay?
that one. Let's go.
Well, then I take it back a little bit.
Yeah.
But anyway, so my mom, she had never flown before. And so with me doing the travel nursing, I kept having people because I did 2 assignments close to home. And then I had people that was like, when are you going to like really travel nurse? And so my first one, I picked Pensacola, Florida,
Oh,
and my
nice.
mom had never flown before. And so I surprised her on Mother's Day with a plane ticket. And she was shocked. She's like, why the heck are you having me fly by myself?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I didn't think about that. But she came and I called her the night before and I was like, listen, if you're nervous, like, just turn around.
Right.
And she did good. She loved it. But I just didn't want to go 3 months without seeing her. So she
Right.
would always come midway through an assignment
Oh,
and we
nice.
would just gallivant around
Yeah.
for a whole week. And had so much fun. And so it wasn't until the fall of 2020, I was actually working in Arizona that, I was waking up for my night shift that night and my mom called me and I could tell that just that tone in her voice that something was wrong. And so I just, she starts telling me I went to this doctor's appointment. This is kind of, and I stopped her and I was like, "Are you trying to tell me that you have breast cancer?" And she was like, "They think so." And I'm emotional. I get it
Right.
from my dad. Um, but and she knows that about me. My mom, we were best friends, but I was like so fake. I was like, if you don't care, could I call you right back? And she was like, "Yeah." And so I was like, "Okay, I will call you right back."
So your mom basically just said she has breast cancer, and you're like, I'm getting off
I'm
the
in
phone
Arizona
to,
because I'm like, I need a moment.
yeah,
I don't, I because I want to be strong for her, but I need to have my weak moment. And so I had two roommates there, and I come out, and I mean, obviously fell apart, scared. And my mom called me about 20 minutes later because I lost track of time.
right,
And she's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I was talking." And she said, "Okay, well, your dad came in here and he was like, 'What do you mean you're already off the phone? You know she's probably packing a bag. She's probably catching a red eye.'" And I was like, "Okay, listen, I'm not that dramatic, but I thought about
yeah,
it."
you're close.
But I did. I gave a 2 week notice, and then I came home, and they flew my sister down. That way she could do the road trip with me because I had driven there. They just didn't want me being in a car for that
Right,
long by myself. And
it's a lot of time to think,
yeah,
so
yeah. So we get home and we kind of just start making plans on what we need to do. When we found out it was triple negative breast cancer, which to in the medical profession is known to be rare and aggressive. It's
mhm.
it's really the breast cancer you don't want. It's hard to treat. It spreads the quickest. And when it comes back, if you can get past that 5 year mark, in remission, she didn't. It was 2 years to the day of finding out the first time that it was back. But if it does come back, typically it's everywhere and it's just not a good prognosis. So um, I can remember like I had just went on a trip to Ireland for 2 weeks. I planned this huge road trip. My mom was coming, her best friend was coming. We were just gonna go have so much fun.
Yeah,
And that morning, I could tell she'd been crying, and they thought she'd had pneumonia. And they treated it twice outpatient. She went in one time and got IV, antibiotics. Um, but that was not what it was. It was a lung mass, but we didn't find that out until after I'd already left for Ireland. But so she called me that morning and she's just like, "I don't think I can go." And I was like, "What do you mean?" Well, she's a respiratory therapist, so she deals with the lungs and
right.
the heart. And so she's like, "Just taking a shower, I was out of breath." And I was like, "Okay, well, what were your oxygen saturations?" And she's like, 85. I was like, "Oh, wow. Um, okay." So I'm kind of like pep talking her. I'm like, "Listen, we'll go again. Let me go get the lay of the land. I'll come back. I'll take you to Ireland. We'll do it just me and you. Don't
Yeah,
even stress about it. Let's get you feeling better." My mind never went to cancer, because she actually was in Alaska visiting me July, because this is September that we're having the conversation of she just got out of the shower. She can't go to Ireland.
gotcha.
But in July, when she came visiting me in Alaska, I hadn't seen her for a couple weeks. And I remember that last day, I told her, I said, "I'm not being ugly." I was like, "But you have almost like a smoker's cough. Like, you should not be having that. You need to go get that checked out." And I had turned around when we were eating our last dinner there, and she kind of slowly, honestly, like an elderly person, got out of the booth. And so we get in the car, and I just remember I looked at her and I was like, "What is going on?" Because I've never seen you move like that. And it was always, "Well, I just need to go to the chiropractor," or "I need a massage." And
Right,
I did. I told her, "You need to go to the doctor. Like, you need to call them when you get home." I wish I'd said oncologist. I didn't.
right.
And so that's one thing too, like through this journey is, in the last 2 years, I've had some conversations that I had with her that I wish I would have went about differently, but I've just had to come to terms with it is how it
I mean,
is.
we've all got those shoulda, coulda, woulda moments,
Right.
and I've said this and I'll continue to say it. Everything happens for a reason.
Yeah, I
And
believe that.
some of those reasons may suck, or you may never know those
Some of
reasons.
those reasons may be why I'm sitting here talking to
It could
you.
be. And as sad as it is, maybe this is, part of why
Yeah,
everything happens. So,
yeah.
but yeah, so
So whenever I got home from Ireland, it'd been 2 weeks, but I had went to her house to give her a hug and a kiss.
and what month was this when you got September?
September
Okay.
of 2022.
Okay.
And so I went over to her house with her best friend. We needed to get her little power bank since she wasn't going to be using it to charge Barbara's phone. But when we get over there, I just noticed that she's like touching a place on her collarbone, and I could tell her friend's concerned. My mom's looking at her some type of way, and I said, What's going on?" Because I wasn't even supposed to go. I would have got on a plane, so I don't think she would have told me. And she was like, "Oh, physical therapy. I've got a muscle here." And I said, "Well, let me feel it." And when I felt it, I honestly, my knees almost buckled, because it was hard as a rock. It was about size of a half of a hot dog. And I just told her, I said, "Mama, that's not a muscle. You need to call the oncologist today, not Monday, today, because it was a Thursday." It's weird, the things
Oh
you
yeah,
remember.
yeah.
Um, but I left feeling like you do not need to go, but I knew she would be mad if I didn't go to Ireland.
Right.
So whenever I got back, the whole trip, my friends were so supportive. I was scared. I was actually on the trip, um, and she was getting some scans done. And that's one thing she told me, like, we'll figure out what's going on. You go,
Yeah.
and when you get back, we'll know. And so, yeah, my mom kept texting me. I think she was just nervous to look at the results herself, but she's like, "Have you looked at the results yet?" And I was like, "Am I really going to have to tell my mom her cancer's back?"
Right.
Because I had looked at the results. I was trying to get back to our Airbnb to where I could have a second, collect myself,
Right.
and
Yeah.
make the phone call, because clearly she wanted me to open it. And so you can imagine that was not a fun conversation to have. Um, but so by the time I got home, which was about a week later, she had her PET scan that day to show us where the cancer was. And I can just remember, like, it was 8 p.m. I just arrived home from Nashville, just got dropped off. And, I hear cop knock. Well, my dad's a retired state trooper,
Right.
so it's always how he knocks, and I hate it because it makes me,
Yeah.
jolt a little
Yeah.
bit. But
Do you
I
ever come
knew.
and do that little Do you ever come do it to your bedroom? Just
Oh
that knock.
yes,
Get up.
oh
Yeah.
yes,
Scare
all the
crap
time,
out of you.
all the time. I've heard that knock my whole life. But I knew it was them because they had not been talking to me since I landed in Nashville. So I had a gut feeling. So when I opened the door, it was my dad, my sister, and my mom. And I couldn't look at my mom because I knew.
Yeah.
And we all just kind of filed in, and we took a seat in my living room. And my dad, I can remember he's sitting, on the little table in front of me, facing me. My mom's here on the couch beside me, my sister over here. And I'm just like looking at him, kind of like, lay it on me. Just
Yeah.
tell me what we're doing, what's going on. And he just started listing off everywhere it was, lungs, liver, lymph nodes, pelvis, femur, and you
Wow.
know my family's a very Christian family.
Mhm.
I've been really blessed with two amazing parents. So we don't cuss in front of them, but I couldn't help myself. I just screamed, um, the F word. And, my dad told me, and I just couldn't help it. I couldn't help it because I knew exactly what he was telling me, what it meant. No, but I didn't need to hear anything else. And my mom's silent. And my dad tells me, he's like, it's not going to do any good for you to be mad. Um, and I said, well, I am mad. And that was when I looked at my mom, and we just started crying. And she just said, "I had plans." And I said, "I know you did." And I mean, I'm just like feeling like Mama Bear
Right.
to my mom,
Yeah.
and I've got her right here. And She was like, I was just really surprised they didn't mention hospice. And I'm like, don't say that. We're going somewhere. We're doing the best. We're gonna fight this. And I already had known because she told me like she really didn't want to do chemotherapy again. Um, so I believe she
So
did it for us.
for everybody that's listening, this is when it came back.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It came back 2 years to the date,
Okay.
September 28th, and it was everywhere. And 3 months later, she was gone. So
Wow.
yeah, so obviously very hard. Um, we're doing better. We have our moments, but
Absolutely.
I had such a problem because I don't know. I could be tough sometimes, or passionate. And I remember going to that first oncology meeting, and I didn't want to be in Paducah. I wanted somewhere bigger,
Right.
But my mom trusted Dr. Claudino. And I ended up growing to love him. Every time he would walk out of the room, he'd pat me on the shoulder, and it meant a lot to me, just that alone.
Yeah.
But yeah, I asked him, I said, why has she not had another PET scan? It's been 2 years. We only did a PET scan to diagnose her that she had breast cancer.
Right.
Um, and now to know that it's back everywhere, where preventatively have we thrown in PET scans? Like, you guys, I know you do it for other cancers. Why would you not do it for an aggressive rare cancer? Um, and bless him, but he pulled up some website and was showing me all these prestigious schools and hospitals, and that only if you're symptomatic will we do a PET scan out of protection for you. Well, I'm sorry, but I inject me with whatever
Right.
to let me have an image and make sure I'm okay.
Yeah.
That gives you security about your health. And it was actually a couple days after we buried my mom, that I had a friend reach out to me from Princeton. She was actually my college roommate at Murray. And she's like, I'm so sorry to have to talk to you about this, but my mom has breast cancer. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, I'm so sorry. At least it's not triple negative, which was dumb for me to say. And
Right.
she said, it is. And I said, oh, Britt, I don't want to actually say
No,
her name.
you're good.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
But you might be able to
Yeah,
figure out the name anyways. It doesn't matter.
I'll beep it out, so don't worry about it.
Okay. Um, but I just go through. You need to see like what the protocol is. Whoever she picks for her oncologist, you need to make sure, like, do I need to tell you if I'm having bone pain or a cough I can't get rid of? Like,
Right.
make sure you know how they're going to handle the PET scans, because it's important, because it's aggressive. And that failed my mother. Um, and she actually told me right then and there, she said, my mother's going to get PET scans every 6 months for the first 2 years. And I just sobbed. And I said, where is she going? And she said, Paducah. And I thought, wow, what a difference in the
Just
same city, two different oncologists doing different protocols for PET scans. And so originally, when I lost my mom, I kind of went into this mode of how could I change that? And I felt that's too big for me, you know. And then this water thing came about. We had somebody close to our family this past Thanksgiving think that she had widespread cancer. That's what her scans showed. It wasn't until they did biopsies that they were actually able to know that it was a rare autoimmune disease, like rare to the point like I've never seen it on a patient's medical history. I had to Google it, just like
really.
her. She's calling
Can
me
you
to
say what it is, or is it
sarcoidosis.
okay? Can
Mm-hmm.
you explain kind of what that does?
So it appears on scans to be tumors, cancer. Um, you know, and it's your body fighting itself. I don't know why it causes those fibroids to be formed, but either way, like it'll compromise your lungs.
Okay.
And that is where the problem really is, as far as what I know about it. Is it can cause like pulmonary fibrosis. which is just the hardening of your lungs. So
Wow.
even though for her it was good news to not to be cancer, because I mean she's healthy, she's middle aged, um, so it was sad. She was planning her own funeral for a whole month until they were figuring out what it was, because they were all stumped, but it was everywhere.
So is it curable, treatable, or
Treatable,
okay?
treatable, not curable.
Yeah, because there's a big difference. You know, a lot of people
Yeah,
will be like, "Oh yeah, they're treating it," and I should be treatable and curable is totally two different
yeah,
things. And
yeah.
yeah,
And at least there's treatable, because like with my mom, we were just grasping at straws, and just hoping for, I don't even know, because I don't know that there was anything that we could have done to make it better for her. It already was
because it
everywhere,
was like, and it was quick.
very
Like
quick.
it was so
And if
that's
she
what
would have had a PET scan every 6 months for the first two
they could have
years,
caught
could have been caught. I mean, we'll never
pretty quick,
know, but
right? Yeah,
dang. The only thing she had done was they drew her cancer markers in May, and they were okay. But at the bottom of the test, it says, do not use this as an indication of the presence or absence of cancer.
right.
So to me, that's not enough.
Yeah, that's not really even an answer. I
Because
mean,
July was when she came and seen me in Alaska. I was working there, and that's when I noticed her mobility issues. Um, you know, she was taking ibuprofen all the time. Her bones were hurting, just stuff like that. Um, and then in September was when we noticed this nodule come up that I don't think she was going to tell me about. But
so Megan, how many people since this water test or since you started this little journey on the water has found out that they have cancer that you know of? Like, is it just a handful, or are there more coming out saying,
well, we
"Hey"?
we have more coming out
And
the
we'll get
last.
into why I'm asking you this here in just a
Yeah,
second.
I know there's been a few people in the community that's having to go to other states right now to get advice, second opinions, because of new cancer diagnoses. And they're all in like around 50s, 50s, give or take some years lower or higher. And for me, I think it's so funny because a lot of people will be like, oh, I'm old. But to nurses, like, you got to be late 70s. We don't think you're
Right.
old.
Yeah.
For us, that's getting up in the elderly, but 50s, no, you should not. And there's kids around here that have gotten cancer, like, and I was talking to a friend last night, and I mean, I just started caring about what water I'm drinking.
Right.
I'm 36, so everything that's come to light from other people telling me, this has been a problem here for years, is maybe my blindness to it because of my age. Because I wasn't here.
I think maybe it's if you don't know, you don't know,
Yeah.
right? You know, so
And I think that was my biggest thing, like when I tested the water, was I had such conviction to keep it to myself, because I would say most people, I wasn't aware that chloroform could be in your water, or arsenic. And that tested positive both times, or one time for arsenic, and then every time we had chloroform in our water, and other ones that we're just not aware of their
right.
names, but they're important too. And so whenever I decided to test the water was whenever our family friend, thought she had widespread cancer. I was already drinking bottled water. I wasn't going to be drinking the tap water. We had the water crisis in our town,
Yep.
in April of 2022. And so, within 10 days, we were practically out of water.
Yeah.
Now, I wasn't home at that point, but I remember it. I was actually working in California. And that's why I feel like my perspective on it should hold or
A
raise
little weight.
eyebrows.
Yeah.
Weight, yes, is a perfect word. Thank you. Because I have not worked the majority of my career here. I have been in so many states, Maine, California, Texas, Arizona, South Carolina, Florida, Alaska, the Virgin Islands. I don't think I'm missing any, but I don't know. So you can kind of see when my mother got cancer and it actually situated me here for until now. Um, I just started noticing like,
So that was kind
why
of
is there
like the
so much cancer here?
so that was kind of like an aha moment for you, I guess, or a connective
Absolutely.
moment
Yeah.
that
It was an observation.
yeah, you're gone, and then okay, this is cancer, 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 cancer. When did you think it was the water? Like, how did the water
Well, it was
connect you to
our family
those?
friend. I remember looking at her PET scan and it was worse than my mother's. And I just thought, oh my goodness, I don't even know if she should do treatment. She needs like MRI of her brain. I was just trying to like guide her in the right direction of what I thought. And um, so glad that it ended up not being cancer.
Right.
But um, so I was already drinking bottled water, and it was at that moment that I'm talking to my dad, and I'm just like, honestly, it has to be environmental. Like, it has to. And I'd already known a fair good amount of the statistics as far as how much cancer is due to environmental risk factors versus it being genetic. And only about 5 to 10% of cancers are related to genetics. Um, a DNA mutation.
Right.
Um, so it's all what we're eating, what we're drinking, what we're breathing. That's environmental. And that's the thing too. We know the United States does not care what they put in our food.
Right.
Why is California the only one outlawing
Well,
Skittles?
I've kind of always known that Europe, for example,
Mm-hmm.
or the UK, they like don't allow certain things over there.
Yes.
And it wasn't
Why are we not doing that?
yeah, and it wasn't really up until um this last couple of years that I really started kind of looking at it and like, man, they don't allow any of the was it yellow fives or whatever, like your Mountain
Yes.
Dews and whatever.
Yes.
Because what triggered it for me wasn't even the political speeches or anything. It was just I was having a conversation with someone that said they have never ate biscuits and gravy, and they were from the UK. And then it led into, oh yeah, we're not allowed to have this. You won't find this on our shelves and the shelves because of all the bad stuff that's in it.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, you get whatever you want here. It's like
Yeah.
basically a vending machine for whatever.
Yeah. Where was I at? Uh, I take people on trips too. I have like a travel hosting business.
Oh, cool.
I did that because I love to travel,
Yeah.
and after my mom, I was like, wanted to try something different, do something fun that I like. But I was in Maui in January, and we went to the grocery store, and we picked out all these dried fruits and mangoes and banana chips, like, and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I remember we got back to our housing, and on the top it said cancer risk. Well, I could not eat it after that.
Just done.
Done. Didn't care how good it tastes.
Right.
I appreciated the label, but if we had labels like that on everything on our shelves, I'd probably not eat much of it.
You
And that's the thing, it's hidden. The reason the water matters so much to me is because I've never liked water. There's water
see,
in
I don't
here.
like water either. Yeah.
But I got to a point a few years ago that I was like, all right, girl, you need to start drinking more water. And so I feel like people who do drink water, they think, right, they're doing the healthy thing. That's the best thing for their body.
Right.
So it maddens me if someone is drinking unclean water, something that we pay for, that's supplied to us by our city, our county, whatever, and they're trying to be health conscientious and they're actually being subjected to
Poison, basically. Yeah.
harmful chemicals or byproducts.
Let me ask you a tough question.
Yeah.
Do you think that the people that are in control of treating Crittenden County's water, our water, however you want to look at it, know what is going in there? Do you think that any of the people have the knowledge of what's being put in their water, or have the knowledge of what is being put in the water is dangerous. What's your take on that?
Okay, it's hard because I feel bad for the water companies actually because I think they're cleaning up a mess that's really not theirs. They're just being subjected, our water sources are being subjected to harmful chemicals that are getting released into our air and our water sources by big industrial plants. So that's the problem. It's so complicated, but no, I'm sure they know it's a problem and they treat it as well as they can with what they've got because,
Because they're
we use
regulated.
chlorine.
Yeah, they're regulated. There's certain chemicals and certain things they have to put in this treated water in order for it to go out through homes, right? That's
Yes,
by the
and they
government.
test it, and I just believe they're probably doing the best they can. My whole thing was educating people on what I had found. I'd paid X amount of money and was like, I'm just gonna, because I did. I felt convicted.
Yeah.
I felt convicted not only as a nurse, but just because I have a tender heart. I've lost my mother to cancer. I don't want to see anybody else. And I was digging so hard. I mean, I would set up my desktop in my spare bedroom, and it would be like 1 or 2 p.m. in the afternoon. And by the time I would snap out of it, it was dark outside. And I'm like, how the
Go to
world,
the deep.
like, that was how it was going for me. I was getting, so when I say a rabbit hole, I went down one. And that was a problem for me too. When I did the city council meeting was, they made it aware at the very beginning that here's a piece of paper. If you want to go to this site, you'll type in this, let's just say 10-digit code, because it was a lot of numbers. Which who's going to know those numbers, to be honest?
Right.
And you can see kind of the results of the water testing. And
So you said you went to a city council meeting.
yeah,
So let's talk about that. How did that come up? Did you put yourself on there, or how did that happen?
I was supposed to actually have a meeting
Okay.
to talk about what direction I should go. I did have to cancel because I had someone who's like my second mom have a little bit of a health scare. And
Yep.
so I wanted to be at that doctor's appointment to kind of advocate for her or ask the questions maybe she didn't know she should ask. And so I had to cancel. And so, no, I was very shocked. It wasn't until it was put out to the public and that somebody, a friend, on the council reached out to me to say, "Can't wait to see you Monday." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And she's like, "What do you mean?" And
Surprise.
I'm like, "Yeah, are you talking about the water?" And she was like, she just sent me a screenshot of the agenda. I was the first to speak, and out beside it, water. And so that kind of bothered me a little bit because I was like, I should have been notified. Um, I should have been notified. So I at least was able to get prepared
Yeah.
for those couple days. Um,
But not like you would have if you would have scheduled it and went on,
yeah,
right?
I think it worked out how it was meant to, though.
Yeah.
I think it worked out how it was meant to because there were times that I just didn't have the heart to get on my computer and start typing out what I wanted to
Okay.
address because let's be honest, like this has been like several months in the making of me doing this. And I was like, I'm going to have to start from the stinking beginning.
Right.
That sucks. So
Wow.
I had to make it in a way that I was being respectful to them, but just laying it out. So I would like, and I kind of like, I pinned that to my Facebook page too, like what I actually
Yep.
read verbatim, so that people could see what was said, what I said. But I would try to like throw in some facts and then I would bring it back and make it pertinent to them, to me, to us. And like I was telling them, I just recently, started a new job and I got on night shift. And my first night shift, I'm taking a patient down to the morgue who's 55, 7 months of hell, cancer. And thank me, who is very sensitive to this topic because of my mother, I'm having a comfort. And I feel like God does place us in situations like that, to let us show that we've got the strength to do it, but
Right.
also to be somebody that can actually relate to that family and maybe know what not to say.
Yeah.
Um, because that was the biggest thing when I lost my mom. I was like, wow, everything I've always said to comfort people, I will be
Is
going
wrong.
about that
Yes.
differently. Because we don't want to hear you're going to see him again. We want them here now.
Yeah.
Even though that is the truth and it's something that you eventually get to, that being comfort for you. But in the moment, when you have a loss like that, I was 34. I'm not married. I don't have kids yet. My sister had a 6 month old. Like, my brother's halfway through nursing school. Like, we had so many different chapters and things that she's never going to be here for. And so it's been tough, but that was my first night shift. And having to comfort them and everything, I'm just like 55,
That's young.
and I'm seeing you all the time. I was working. I feel like I maybe don't need to say where I was working.
Yeah.
But
Whatever you're
I was
comfortable with.
working 2 hours from here in a town in Kentucky, and I remember there were two new grads, nurses, and they were concerned about their patient, and they were like, "Hey, would you care to come put like a set of eyes on him and tell us what we should do?" So I go in there, and I mean, immediately, I don't know anything about this patient, but immediately when I walk in there, I can tell he's very sick. He's has cancer. He's young, and I think he was 60. It was either 50 or 60. Um, but we start talking, and I'm kind of tiptoeing around. I'm just, hi, I'm Megan. I'm just here to check on you. How are you feeling? What's
Right.
going on right now? And he just starts telling me a story. That he was also a travel nurse. He just got there to work and only
Wow.
got to work one shift. And he was admitted into the hospital he was hired to work at, and was finding out that, yeah, he had cancer in his liver, lung, and bones. Well, that's the main three places my mother had it. So instantly I'm like, ugh. And I was like, I'm so sorry to hear that. And he said, yeah, June 28th, I found out this. Well, that's my mother's birthday.
Oh wow.
So I'm like, again, ugh, like, because most people, when they tell you, they don't have those specific dates.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I do with my mother's cancer.
I mean, it's very coincidental, unique, weird, whatever you want to say. That
It's my mother's birthday. I've
yes,
had crazy
I can
moments.
see where you're going. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, 3 weeks after we buried her, like, I went to work at a big facility in Nashville. It's one reason I have this covered up here, is
Yes.
just so they're not affiliated. But so we've got Darth Vader over here sticker,
Yeah.
which I love. But it was 3 weeks after she passed, and I can remember, like, I told my dad, I was like, I'm just not ready. I don't think I'm ready. And he told me, he said, you go and you try it out. Too much for you, you quit.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, so that's what I needed to hear. And I remember I go in and I'm nervous because I don't want to be there. I don't want to be there. I want to be at home. I want to
Right.
be with my family. And anybody that loses somebody has to eventually go back to work, and it sucks because, but anyway, so I get there, and they've paired me, because when you take a new assignment, you get to shadow a nurse
Mm-hmm.
for 2 days, kind of get the lay of the land, and then you're on your own. And the nurse that comes up to me, she was like, hi, I'm going to be the one you're with tonight. And I was like, okay. And she was so precious. And I was like, what's your name? And she was like, Comfort. And I said, wow, what a gorgeous name. I've never heard
That's
of that
unique. Yeah.
before. But what was I needing that night?
Some
Comfort.
comfort.
So
Wow.
I keep getting stuck in this patient's room. It's the wife that's the patient, the husband's in there. I just love them. I'm talking my head off. And what's crazy too is, I have Comfort's patients, and then we split off. I had two of her four. So it was just happenstance that she was assigned these patients and that I was assigned these two specific ones.
Wow.
And so the one of the two that I couldn't get out of the room, we're talking, and I was like, I'm not going to tell anybody about what I've just went through.
Right.
I don't, you kind of get to a point where you're like, I don't want anybody's pity. Like, everything's okay. Like, I appreciate it, but you don't want somebody feeling sorry for you.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'm not going to mention it. And so I keep being in this room, like I said, and all of a sudden, I don't know what got into me, but I said, oh, I actually do know. I drew her blood. And it had been because when my mom got sick, I quit. I was like, I'm not going to work. I already had 2 travel assignments I'd signed contracts for. And I told my dad, I said, I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah.
I'm here. I'll be your little errand girl. Like, she decides she wants front porch. I'm headed.
Right, right.
You guys need prescriptions pick up. Tell me when and where. I'll bring them to you. You got enough going on. I wanted to be as much help as I could, and also get to spend that time with my mom because in my gut I knew I didn't have long. And so anyways, I draw this patient's blood, and I'm like, look at that, I've still got it. And I said, I haven't done that in a while. I said, I've not been working about the last 6 months. And they were like, really? Wow. Well, they must just pay you really good as a travel nurse for you to be able to do that. And I said, well, I had savings and stuff, and that's kind of what's carried me through. But I actually was off because I just lost my mother. And, obviously the vibe in the room
Completely
changes.
switches, yeah.
And I was like, it's okay. I said, honestly, it's been 3 weeks. This is my first shift back. And I said, I think the only thing that has been making me feel better is I have this little token in my pocket. And I was like, I found this beside her table whenever me and Dad were going through her stuff. And it's a cross. And then on the back, I don't want to mess it up. It says, do not be afraid, for I am with you.
I am with you always.
I'm with you always. Yeah.
No, I'm not good at this stuff. We'll take a picture of it.
Yeah.
We'll put it, add it in there. We'll put it on top of the screen.
That's really
But the
cute,
crazy
though, yeah.
thing is
It's really cute.
when I pull it out of my pocket and I say, this is what I think has gotten me through. And that whole week of orientation, every time I put on my scrubs for the first time again, I put this in my pocket. And I thought, this is what I'll carry around with me. And no lie, I have photos of it too. The husband stands up. He starts emptying out his pockets. He pulls out coins. He pulls out his wallet, his keys. And at the very bottom of his pocket, he pulls out the same token.
Are you kidding?
No. And so I'm sitting there and like tears well up in my eyes. And they were like, are you okay? And I said, no, I feel like my mom's here. I feel like my mom's loving on me right now. And he said, I've had this for 10 years. And I said, what are the odds? They're God odds.
Same one, yeah.
They're God odds. And so I was like, can I have your token? I want to take it back to my desk and take a picture. His was so worn out. And it was just beautiful. And so, like, God really has been in our story. And I think, like, the conviction I've had over this water deal has been guided by him. I'm trying to tread lightly. My main thing was bringing awareness to it, but the more I think about it, the more I'm like, I'm not scared to say something. And I know that we're getting a lot of money. I even quoted the Crittenden Press, during my kind of speech to the city council, where it says $16 million. And so I kind of was just proposing, like, you have people out here, not that I don't think you guys should provide filtration systems, but at the same time, everybody has this problem in this region. I understand. Right. So at least the people that can go and buy filtration systems, and that was the one thing too, I wanted to show people that my filtration system was working.
So that was the test results that you showed that said it was negative.
Yeah, the 94
and
96.
That was using your filtration
and that was,
system.
Those test results, the 94, was actually halfway through the filter life, which was 6 months.
Oh wow.
And the one that was 96 was 5 months into the filter
So if
system's
they're
life.
brand new, I mean, I bet it's lower, even
Well,
lower.
and you pay 200 for the filtration system. It comes with its own, faucet, which is really nice. Like I water my dog and cat with it. Like I fill up my coffee pot with it. Um, I even water my plants with
You know
it.
what? That's funny. And I don't want to take nothing away from us as humans, but have you noticed how often our pets get cancer?
No,
One of the
because I've only
things,
had two.
right, right. So, like,
But I would love to talk to a veterinarian because
yeah.
I've had
Well,
somebody
I
raise that
know.
question.
We never had my bloodhound tested for cancer, but it it was pretty obvious that's what he had. Our Australian Shepherd we had to have put down because pancreatic cancer.
Really? Oh my
Yeah, it actually
gosh.
exploded. His pancreas actually exploded. We don't, even Doc didn't even have him. He's like, I don't know how this dog's even alive, you know. But if you stop and kind of just do the numbers on pets as well,
Yeah.
the amount of and I'm not talking about horses or cows because they are exposed to a lot of pond water and things like that too. But
Yeah.
house pets, the amount and it's just so you ever notice like you buy a new car, oh, I want this car because nobody has it, and then you buy it and everybody's got it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like that when you started popping up, and I'm like, oh man, and then it just started. My wheels started turning.
Mhm.
Well, this person's dog died of cancer. This person had cancer. What is everything connected to besides their food? You
Yeah.
know, like you
And I
see
can't
a lot
say
of
that
that.
it's not the
Right.
water alone. All
Exactly.
I know is that the research I have done, because if you've watched all my videos, I ended up listing out just off the top of my head, random. I mean, I probably need to sit down and thoroughly do it. But my initial set down, pen to paper, who do you know in the last 5 years that has had cancer? It was 18.
That's a lot.
That's a lot, but I have thought of other people since then, and I'm just not going to add that to the total because that's my initial total. But out of that 18, eight of them are gone. And it's just, I have a best friend who lives Alabama, Tennessee line, and she is in a small town, just like, Crittenden County in a small county. And she told me, she's like, I just think it's crazy because we're 3.5 hours from you. But she's like, if I ask my husband, who has grown up here and knows everybody here in this small town, I don't know that he knows, if any, but maybe one. And I said, I can name you so many people right now that have it currently, And
And it's all within a certain area. You know what I mean? A certain region or however
yeah,
you want to look at it.
yeah.
So that's what's really weird about it. So let's talk about something that didn't happen
Hmm.
with an interview with
Oh,
the
yeah.
news. So let's talk about that.
That was fun. Well, for starters, I was reached out to by a reporter, and the reason I was okay with speaking with her was because, we were kind of sending audio messages back and forth. She's really busy. I'm really busy, and I feel like you can tell a lot by how people say things, what they say, their
Mhm.
body language. Obviously, I couldn't see hers, but the she sent me a voice memo very early on because I was still hesitant, um, because I didn't know if I wanted to go that route.
Right.
I was just trying to tell people, like, hey, I tested my water. Here's what it said. Came back with chloroform and arsenic. Per the health guidance levels, obviously the EPA levels are higher. I don't understand that, but whatever. And I hope to actually talk to them about that. But I don't know. It I lost my train of thought actually.
Well, so your voice memoing
Yes. So
reporter.
she tells me,
I
um,
can tell you're really passionate about this because many times that we've been talking, you'll get into something that triggers something, and you'll lose your train of thought
I
of where
go,
we're going. But
yeah.
it should show everybody that what you're doing is not a malicious thing. It is something
Yes,
that is
not at all.
100%.
Not at all.
I mean, just you talking about your nursing. I know a lot of people, a lot of nurses and stuff, and I know some really good ones, and I know some really
Yeah.
just mediocre,
Yeah.
bad ones, whatever you want to call it. But I can tell you're really passionate about what you do,
Thank
and
you.
you're very passionate about this because obviously you care for not only your life, your parents' life, and your community. Like that's what
Absolutely.
I've taken from this whole thing.
Well,
So
we're a small town. I mean,
yeah,
everybody knows everybody.
right.
It's kind of funny, I'll have friends from other states come and I'll be waving at people,
Just
as
everybody,
I'm
yeah.
driving through town. They're like,
Calling them out by name,
goodness.
yeah.
Yeah, they're like, oh, this is weird.
Yeah, I'll drive. So my dad still lives over there, and I'll drive over there or just be driving through, and I'll look to see who I know, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's so and so.
Yeah.
That's so and so's dad. That's so and so, and I'm just like, wow, I
And then
can't
they mess
believe.
me up when they get a new vehicle and I
Right, then
don't
it starts all
know.
over. You got to figure it
I
out
actually
again.
ran into somebody before I got here and I was like, I'm in the black car that keeps waving at you.
I asked my uncle one time. My uncle, I've noticed, he would throw his finger up to every single vehicle he passed. I said, "What do you know everybody?" He said, "No, but just I'll never miss somebody I know if I just wave at everybody."
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
we have like the road that my parents lived on was Ford's Ferry.
that's where my
And
dad lives. Yeah,
really,
yeah,
okay, well, we call it the Ford's Ferry Wave, and it's a.
just yeah,
So I do the same thing. If I'm meeting
just
you on Ford's Ferry, I'm giving you the Ford's Ferry
that's
Wave, and
cool.
I probably don't know who you are.
Yeah,
But
that's funny. So yeah, so you're sending voice memos. You're not sure you want to get into this.
yeah, so she tells me, she's like, I started thinking about who I know, that I love, and she said I'm at 10. And she was like, that was me not thinking very much. And she was like, I just want you to know, like, I think you're on to something that's been a problem for a while. Um, and she was like, I just want you to know, I want to kind of give you a voice or a platform, a way to spread more awareness about it, because that's really what I care about. Is just, we all know, like I said, we should probably be filtering our water.
Right.
But I definitely think here in this area you need to have one. So my biggest thing has been like, what about the people that can't afford it?
Mm.
And so when I went to the city council meeting, I wanted to obviously present them with facts that they can't deny, um, but also advocate for those who can't afford it and say, hey, if you're not going to provide us all with filtration systems, I think you should at least target the, I think it's 2,000 out of 8,000 in Clinton County that live below the poverty
Below.
level. You need to target them. It's $200. Do the math. You got plenty of money.
Right.
That's honestly how I felt, and I hope if they can, they will.
Do you think that, and I'm just going to be very broad on this, do you think that every county, city that puts out that you buy water from on the bill should, I mean, they could at
No,
least,
it should not be on the bill.
you don't think they
I
should say, no, I mean, advised to use filtration or, maybe like a Be Smart initiative to
They
make your
be having
water
to tell
even,
everybody that.
yeah, like make your water even more healthy by a filtration system. Just kind of make it aware of that because I feel like sometimes people aren't. I mean, you don't know what you don't know.
Right, right.
So I think if and by you doing what you're doing, like people are
Because trust
becoming
me,
so
I did
aware.
not picture myself learning so much about water
Right?
and
That's not what
disinfection
you.
byproducts. Honestly, it's not my forte.
Right.
Um, but it's like once I started looking and my eyes were open, I couldn't stop looking further. And what's crazy, it's literally all at our fingertips. You just have to look. And so that was, like I said, I was just like, I'm gonna share it. I'm gonna tell people, if anything, just get a filtration system. You can control that part. But back to, WPSD,
Yeah.
my reporter, she ended up asking me, like, would you be okay with them like interviewing you? They really want to. And I was like, oh man. I was like, girl, I do not do well if I feel like the spotlight's on me and I have to speak. I'm going to stutter. I'm going to freeze. I'm going to forget what I'm talking about. So I was like, first question, is it live? And she said no. And I said, okay. Well, if you can edit out certain parts if I mess up,
Right.
we're good. Um, And I didn't have that problem. I'm serious. I prayed for confidence before that meeting. And I mean, at one point, I had both hands up on the podium. Like I'm teaching a seminar. I'm just
Right.
like, who am I right now? And then when I watched back, the video that my friend took that I didn't know, um, I was like, I don't recognize her. Really, truly.
Right.
I was honestly weirded out because I'm like, why am I smiling so much? But I couldn't stop smiling. So it is what it is. I got my point across. I said what I wanted to say. I was very transparent. But yeah, what it really boiled down to, and I really have kind of told people online who follow me, make your own assumption. But yeah, had a lot to do with being worried about being sued. That's why that they never showed anything I said, because they interviewed or they were taping the whole time that I was speaking to the council, which was about an hour. And then they interviewed me for over, I'd say, about 15 minutes outside.
Right.
Um, that should have been the point of the whole thing, was to shed light on the problem, not just we're gonna just glaze over this.
Gonna pick and choose.
RN worried about cancer rates and
Right.
all this stuff and the water and showing like the mayor throwing her hands up when I never saw that, and the person who cleans the water, all red faced, and it was just not how it really felt in there. I felt well respected from the city council and the mayor. I felt like they listened to me. I mean, dang, they obviously didn't stop me from my whole
So
speech.
you feel like they just kind of twisted everything to make it look like it was something other than what it really was. Is that what
I
kind
feel
of,
like it
or am I
showed more angst,
okay?
to sensationalize it
It was more
versus,
dramatized.
yes, versus actually what is the point. And I was so mad about that because I was like, if you did not come to be a part of the solution, you should have stayed out
You
because
need
I didn't
to
want you there.
request that footage. They recorded you. You request your
Oh, I
interview
didn't know I
from
could
them.
do that.
Mhm.
Well, I'll get on that. But yeah. So it was
Wow.
fear on their end. It wasn't questions of the validity of it,
Right.
because you can look up everything that I say. That's why I carry my papers with me. I don't want to misspeak. I want to spread only research, studies, facts. That's what we need to be paying attention to. And, one thing that was super crazy is like, they did the article for News Channel 6. And there was a ton of comments, and, the first bad comment that came back about something about, well, does this nurse have nothing better to do or something like that? And
Yeah.
somebody ended up asking, do you even live here, dude? And I thought that was so funny because you're going to have people like
You're
that.
gonna.
But I
Yeah.
knew for myself, I'm like, I'm not going to look at the
Good.
comments.
Yeah.
They will serve me no purpose. So I told my sister, because she's like a mad dog when it comes to protecting me. And I'm the same way. We're twins. So,
Yeah.
like, we're so close. It's a bond I can't explain. I feel honestly bad for people that don't have twins,
Right.
or not a twin, but me and her are very close. But I told her, I said, don't tell me anything unless I have to know, unless it's need to know.
Yeah.
But even there, there was a comment on there, somebody that my parents actually hired, at the Magnolia House
Yeah.
restaurant, that I guess found it okay to put an asterisk and say, put cigarette down and speaks about cancer water. And then somebody else who's like in their 20s, young 20s, says, ha ha ha, we were thinking the same thing. And that irked me so bad, because what you're insinuating is that anybody who has got cancer around here is because they smoke. That's not the truth.
Right.
My mother smokes, but it's took a lot for me not to respond back to that comment, because it was the only negative one, because I thought it's not a laughing matter. And
Right.
I pray that, because I do believe you reap what you sow, I pray that that never happens to their mother,
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yep.
because I know both of their mothers.
So and surely, I mean, you've, like you said, you've experienced that negativity, and I listen.
That's the only negativity I've gotten.
Yeah,
I've
and
had
that's actually
support.
really good
I've
because
had
I'm
support
surprised because
every
There's
stuff.
always what they call the keyboard warriors. You know, those people that
I
will
haven't
sit
seen
behind the
them.
keyboard.
I haven't seen
So
them.
maybe your approach and your passion is actually shining through. You know,
I hope so.
a lot of times when people stand up for what they believe in, there's so much negativity and so much kickback. And, you know, especially when you get into the two controversial topics, religion and politics, there's
Oh
so
yes.
much, you know, that's why I
Oh
try to
yeah.
stay away from it. And
Same.
it's tough sometimes. Like it's tough. You know, nobody can agree to disagree anymore. And with you
Right.
throwing out the facts, there's nothing to dispute.
I think that is maybe why there's not keyboard warriors. Is
Yeah.
because can you really dispute a fact?
Right. And it's not your facts, it's the facts
Yeah.
that's put out
It's
for
just
everybody
something
to
I
see.
found. I mean, because I got so deep that I was doing like 120-mile radius search of how many toxic release and inventory facilities we have. They call them TRI
Hmm.
facilities. And, there's 11 in Calvert City. And I think that's what News Channel 6 was worried about. They're backed by, big money. And that's totally fine. Um, I really don't care. I've had to come to the conclusion that I'm good with God and whatever happens to me, happens to me. But it is scary. I live by
Right.
myself. Anybody can look at my Facebook and see that I'm a single woman and don't have children. I live by myself. But I did after the city council meeting, which is sad to say.
Yeah.
I had to say, well, if I get retaliation, and again, I'm going worst case scenario, I'm good. I'm good. Are we good? That was
Right.
literally
Yeah.
what I said. I was like,
Like
are we good?
we're yeah.
Because if we're good, I'm good.
I would honestly hate to see if that happened because I don't think Daddy would stand by and put up with that too well. Your dad.
No, and
I
actually
don't
just
think he
had to
would.
call the
I
police
don't
to my
think he would.
house.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I had a rock in my window, my bedroom window, and that was this week. And I just wanted them to report it, document it just in
Mm.
case, which I have security system at my house. Um, as far as security cameras, just because of my business and
Right.
everything. But I didn't have them put up then. And I was like, dang it. And it scared me because I opened up my bedroom blinds and there's a big rock right in my window and just shattered. I was actually on the phone with my sister and I was like, oh my gosh. And I started crying. I was like, oh, here we go. And then all of a sudden, it was weird. It was like this peace came over me of, you're protected. You're protected. I was talking to a friend last night, and I was like, she was the one telling me like Calvert City's backed by big money. And I said, I know, they're bigger than me. And the minute I said that, and I can't explain it, it's like a thought that doesn't come from myself was like, don't forget, I'm bigger than everybody. And I
Oh,
was like, that's right. Okay, I'm good.
yeah, we're
It's
good.
like, so there's been so
Wow.
many things, just like the coin,
Yeah,
just
that's
like
really
this.
cool.
Our family has been so loved on and touched by our community. Oh my gosh. To even dip into that, the
Right.
love that was shown to my mother, I couldn't have asked for better. That funeral home was packed. And I got to hear so many stories about the kind acts my mother did that she never shared with anybody because she didn't need to.
Right.
And I was talking to that friend last night and I was like, I don't think the woman had a flaw. And I would tell my dad, we were actually
Yeah.
picking out pictures for the funeral. And
Did he disagree?
no, no.
I'm just kidding.
We're picking out photos and there comes a photo of, and I mean, my mom was so gorgeous. And I said, how did you snag that? And he was like, I don't know. And I was like, it's got to be your personality because he's really funny.
Yeah.
And I was like, gosh, she was beautiful. And she never knew it. And which made her even more beautiful,
Right.
but my mom my mom was just the best person. I can't think of one single flaw. I mean, to the point that me and my sister would get in trouble and she would spank us with flip flops and we would fake cry because we felt bad for her. And we would get back inside and because she'd take her flip flop off she had, and we would get back inside and we'd be like, did that hurt? And I'd be like, no. And she's like, me either. And I'm like, bless her.
Yeah.
But
That's
she was
funny.
just the sweetest.
Yeah.
And her and my mom complimented each other, or her and my dad compliment each other so well. You know, my dad is passionate about things just like me. I really get that from him. I get, and he's so tenderhearted too, but I like to think some of my tenderness and the way I am as a nurse is because of my mother,
Yeah.
because of how nurturing and loving she was. And so it's like, yes, this is personal, and you know, so I've told people, I started doing the Facebook lives because I
Hmm.
couldn't control my tongue. I was
Right.
getting so passionate to the point that I would get angry, and I would be like, well, you're gonna have to delete that one. And so it's kind of funny because they're live videos, so I'm having to like screen record them so that I have
Hmm.
them before they
Hmm.
delete after the 30-day,
Right.
which I didn't know was a thing. That kind of sucks, but I've progressed from 10-minute videos to 15 to hour, and I was like, oh my land. I'm
Wow.
like, people are like, shh.
I'll give you some pointers on how to a little device that you connect to your phone that you can stream from the device
Uh
that
huh.
will record it to the device. So that way you'll always have it. It'll still be a live stream, but you record it.
Okay,
Yeah.
yes, I would be
Yeah.
curious.
Yeah, it's pretty
Not that I really want to do Facebook Lives anymore. If
right.
I can help
You
it,
kind of
I,
moving past that.
yes.
Yeah. So
Um,
I want to make sure uh I touch on this stuff here,
Absolutely.
right? So, what is your proposed solution for future plans?
So the main thing was that I felt like because it's a paid service, because there are disinfection byproducts in our water from the chlorine. And the problem is that when the chlorine touches our organic and inorganic matter in our environment, soil, water, air, not chlorine in the air, but you know what I'm saying?
Right.
It creates disinfection byproducts. So, like the city's results that I got a 47 out of 99. And then I got a 68 out of 99. And the only reason it's not lower than 68 is because I didn't have the additional disinfection byproduct test with it.
Gotcha.
And, you know, my thinking is if you have the TTHMs, those disinfection byproducts, you can pretty much assume safely, I would say, that the HAAs are also going to be present because they're the same, created because of the same reason, the chlorine.
Okay.
So that 47 out of 99 score that had the HAA and the TTHMs, that's why it was so low. So there has not been one single sample besides the filtered water that I did to show, hey, it cleans it out, which was so important to me. Um, I honestly, the day I was getting the results back for the actual filtered water that I had been drinking, it took me like 15 minutes to collect myself to actually open it up because I
Right.
thought, what if I've been drinking all this?
Yeah.
And I wasn't meaning to. I didn't want to. If I had a choice, I wouldn't. You know what I mean? And
Right.
that's again my thing. You've got people that can't afford bottled water.
I know it's
You,
so expensive now. It's like
it is.
ridiculous.
And,
Like,
and even that's not the best option.
no,
And
it's
so
not.
that was why I was like, short term goals, do bottled water. Long term goals, you've got to get a filtration system. And I was able to show, like, hey, this is like, took it all out. But yeah, one time it came back with arsenic in it, you know, the city water. And so, you know, you have these two sets of guidelines that's given to us. There's a health guidance level, and then there's the maximum contaminant level that is supposed to be safe per the EPA if it is that level.
Right.
The problem is that the EPA says at that level, even if it's at the highest, like our average for 2024 for THMs was 77. Well, the highest that the EPA allow is 80. Well, dang.
I mean, you're right
You're
there.
at that. What's the
Right.
difference? At this
Yeah.
point, what's 3 points? You're at there. You're at it.
Yeah.
And you had sites that were testing positive for 117, and I've been told I can look at the all of the results, and I will. I will get to it. I know they know I will. But I know it's kind of funny. I'm
No.
like, I love you guys. Please don't be mad at me.
Yeah.
But no. So I just, I don't know. I loved being able to say like, okay, these filtration systems actually work, and yeah, just kind of go from there. But
I mean, I think even if people can't afford the big filtration system for their home, go buy some of the Britas
Well, the
and
life straw. I
okay.
tested the life straws. There is I can't remember. I think it's 30 gallons. Um, Either way, it's a big water dispenser from Life Straw. It has the reservoir that your water will filter through. You can put it in your refrigerator. You can leave it on the counter. The only thing is with that, because it has the ability for light to touch it, especially on the countertop,
Hmm.
is that it has to be cleaned with like hot, warm water, soapy water every week because it grows algae.
I got you.
So I at first was like, ooh, because it had like slime in it. And I was like, okay, I'm going to have to tell people about this. But once I talked to, the people I needed to talk to, they were like, that's normal. It's because it's a clear container, the sunlight touching it, that's all normal. You're going to have that with any kind of dispensing system. So, Life Straw is a good option.
Yeah.
They actually have now tumblers
Okay.
that have
The
the
straw.
membrane in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has the straw in
I
it.
think I've got a life straw around here somewhere. My son, and he loves the whole survival stuff, and we got him a couple for Christmas one year. I think there's still one running around here somewhere.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah, yeah.
it's just the
And
one you
I
just stick
I
down
have
here.
done it. I had a glass of water that somebody had went and grabbed dirt out of their yard and made muddy water, and I was nervous. I was
Oh, I
so
guarantee it. Yeah,
nervous. I was
yeah.
like, I do not want to do this, but I have to know if this is true. And this was way before. This was a year and a half ago, before the water thing was even in my mind. Um, but yeah, no, I drank out of the life straw, and it was water. It
Yeah.
was just straight
So,
water.
so is there anything other than the life straw that like, maybe people can get
So there are different things that I've learned along the way
that
that
you would
you
recommend
need.
that
Yes.
you've
So
done
like
research on?
you need to make sure that it is NSF certified system. That is important. You want reverse osmosis, and you want that carbon black filter. So, like the one that I recommended is iSpring, and I actually was able to reach out to them. And it's kind of funny because I was like, here's the problem I'm having in our community. I have already spent X amount of dollars with you. I know there's people that's going to want to test their own water. Can you offer us a discount code? And she was like, let me speak to my team. I'll get right back to you.
And this is the company with the test,
The
the water test.
iSpring. Or I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. It was Tap Score.
Okay.
iSpring I'm still speaking with, but Tap Score, yes.
Tap score.
So,
Okay.
they ended up giving us a code. They let me pick out the phrase, and I
Aw.
told them, I said, now listen, they're like, what do you want the code to be? And I was like, could I have it say you matter? I was like, just know, if you allow me to have it that, you're kind of taking a stance with me. So I want to be transparent that here's what's going on and here's the big picture. And she never acknowledged that comment. She was like, your code's in and it's called You Matter.
Like
And
she
I
just
was
said,
like,
yeah.
I told her, I was like, thank you so much.
That's cool.
So it's a
That's
ten
good. That's a
percent
good
off
code.
kit. You Matter in all caps. They have, I mean, so many different kits to like where you can test your soil, you can test your water, you can test for lead, like dust, like
Okay. Hmm.
so it's they've got over like 200 labs,
Oh
and
wow.
yeah, so I'm actually I know the Paducah Sun is wanting to put out kind of a featured article
Mm.
about it, about all this stuff, but they are wanting me to go talk to somebody from the state, get validity on the you know, lab that I sent my stuff off to, Tap Score. I'm not worried about that. I've already had somebody with Live Straw look at it and tell me like these two in particular are the important certifications that they need. That's what they're going to look for. So I already knew that when my reporter reached out to me and said, "Hey, are you comfortable doing this?" And I said, "Absolutely. I'll go. I'll go with you. Let's do it."
Yeah.
So we just gotta get a chance to go do
Connect and
that.
do that. Yeah.
Um,
Take it all the way to the legislators.
yeah,
So hey, look.
yeah. I really would like to. Also, the mayor has agreed for me to do like a survey, like off Survey Monkey,
Nice.
and she's going to put it like on the city's website, like the city's Facebook page. I think she said her Facebook page, but anyways, several different places that it can be seen by the public. And I'll tell people about it, obviously. I just really want to get a good idea because I only know so many people.
Right.
Um, you know, what is the cancer rates here? Let's gather our own data.
And you want to do that just for Crittenden County, or you want to do that for
I,
surrounding counties?
I'd say Crittenden County for
Just
now.
start for you, yeah, to kind of get that
Yeah,
base, and
yeah,
then, because I got a feeling once you do it there, it's gonna just explode. You know
yeah.
what I
I think
mean?
if I make it too wide,
It's gonna be hard to
it
track.
yeah.
It's gonna be
But
hard
the
to track.
the beauty of the Survey Monkey is like I'm gonna have certain questions that I want answered as far as like, was it genetic?
Gotcha.
What year? I may only have a certain year range that I look at, just to kind of narrow down those results. Also, what kind of cancer it was. Um, is it rare? I mean, honestly, usually I can tell you that it's rare if I've never heard of it.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
that was something, to go back to my nursing, I get a detailed, like, medical history. Like, if you came into the hospital and I come on shift and you're going to be my patient, I know your date of birth, your age, your name, if you're a full code or a DNR.
Right.
Do you want CPR, life saving measures used if something happens? And then we go straight into your medical history. So that was kind of one of my points, with the city council was, I think it was the PFAs, and I was listing off all the different
Yeah.
organs it affects. And I remember because I would try to, in specific moments, make eye contact with every single member, and just to show the importance of the question I'm asking. And I just told them, and I said, and I can tell you this because I get it on all four patients every day, every shift, all these years. I can tell you, I usually expect this to be on somebody's medical history that they're going to tell me about,
Yeah.
and I worked in all these states and I wasn't having this. I wasn't.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Can you imagine just even the not poorer parts of the state, but I guess maybe the poorer parts of the state. You go down deep, and just could you imagine what theirs is?
No,
You
I
know.
can't.
So where do you think? And we'll wrap this up. But where do you think the root cause of this is? Of this water being like this? Where do you think it comes from? How?
I feel very confident, or else I would not say it, that it has to do with these TRI facilities. There is in a 120-mile radius, 150. We can look it up. I've looked it up. Um, I want to say one of the facts that I presented to the city council was, um, I think it was years 2014 to 2023. There was 100 million to 1 billion pounds of chemicals released into the atmosphere either by water, air, or sent off site. And you could even look where it is. Like one was in New Jersey, a landfill. That's where the waste was taken to. So I'm just saying, like, it literally tells you anything you want to know. It's called a TRI tracker. The EPA is over it. They keep up with it for a reason. But like Calvert City alone, I think last year they had 130 million pounds of waste to expose of. Um, Riddle me this: 1.7 million of that was released into our air, and then 300,000 into our water. Well, I just told you 130 million and only told you about 2 million about that.
So where's the
Where's the
rest of it?
rest?
Wow. Wow.
Where's the
And
rest?
and
And
there's
I've had people reach out to me and tell me things that I'd be scared to repeat.
so that was my next question. How
Oh,
many, we'll call it behind the scenes
people
bits
that
of
work
knowledge,
places that
right?
are telling me, I want you to
So
know
how
you're
much of that
valid.
has happened?
A
Like
lot.
a lot.
A lot. Um, I've had
And they kind
I've
of,
had people from McLean County. I've had people from Murray. I have people from all over that are reaching out asking about the testing kits, asking, hey, my mom or my grandmother, what was that filtration system you used?
yeah,
Um, I've had them tell me, I worked here in the 80s. I lived in, one of our big subdivisions kind of in Marion is Greenwood Heights.
hmm,
And somebody, I believe it was the News Channel 6 article, said, there was a point in the late 90s that there was many of us in Greenwood Heights that had cancer at the same time. And we
wow,
thought it was odd. So it's not that this has not been going on for a while. I think I've just become privy to the eye opening of it
just kind of,
and
yeah,
care about what I drink. Because that's my thing. If I drink a soda, I know that it's got sugar in it. I know that it's got caffeine in it. That could cause problems for my heart, could cause problems cause diabetes.
right,
I am making a choice to drink that Coke. But if I drink water, I shouldn't have to be worried about getting cancer from it.
right. Water is supposed to be the cleanest stuff that,
Yeah. And so that's my problem. I worry about it goes so deep and it's
it
like I
does.
don't want to
Like,
scare anybody, but like I would not plant until I test the soil, which I will be. I'll be testing my sister's garden. I literally had my first
sorry,
interview.
sis.
No, she just told me. She said, "We got lettuce growing and it's in a raised bed, just so you know." Because the first day I had my Zoom meeting with the reporter,
Hmm.
I go to her house and her husband has doubled the size of their garden. I thought, Jesus, okay, what are we doing here? Please don't grow anything in that because
Right.
I would be curious to see
What it
if
tested
there's any
out.
contaminants in the soil because you've got this groundwater that seeps up these vapors from these chemicals that gets into our soil. And if you I looked at a certain one, the biggest one in Calvert City, it's site wide chloroform and you know where at? Soil and water. So things
Just
spread,
kind of, yeah. It's,
especially when we've been working on doing this to ourselves for a year over
right.
money.
Yeah.
When is somebody going to care about you?
Yeah.
Because the reality is, and I tell people this about their jobs that are workaholics, you are replaceable. You are a
Right.
warm body, and I'm sorry, I'm sure they love you, but the day that you're not here anymore, there will be somebody else quickly in your place. I watched it happen with my mom.
Yeah. It's, you put your 2 weeks in, they care about you, and then they're like, oh, they're panicking to replace you, right? Understand they've got to keep the business going, but
Absolutely.
it's still, they don't
But
care.
remember, it's just a
Right.
job,
It is just a job.
and life is so short. And so I just, I don't know. I cannot stand seeing people who are young be sick when I believe they shouldn't be.
You said, when is someone going to care about you? And I think at least Crittenden County has found that person. I think you're that person.
Stop, don't make
So
me cry.
don't be
I've
crying.
been so good
You've
so
made it
far.
so far, right?
Yeah.
But I think they found that. I think
Well, and I don't want,
because
that stresses me out because I love that. But, I'm somebody that I don't take compliments well.
yeah,
And
but
so it's just like I appreciate it so much, but like I am so out of my comfort zone.
I can
Even being
see
here
that.
with you, I mean, when
Yeah.
you first asked me, I said I'll let you know.
I'm not gonna lie. I had to hit up one of your friends and said, I can show you the message. I was like, do whatever you got to do to get her here because you have a story, and that's what
Yeah,
this is all about.
sure.
Um, if you've seen any of my podcasts or anybody has, I say it all the time. That chair is for if you have a story. I want you to tell that story.
And I love
Um,
that.
and it's just something I just love talking to people. I like
Yeah,
to know
I do too.
things, and then your story just kept growing and growing and growing, and I'm like, this girl is on to something. Not only is she on to something, how many people since this has started have went out and said, okay, we need to change some things,
Yeah.
right? So if they start their own little movement, or they get a filtration system for their house, and or they start drinking from life straws, or they start drinking from filtered water, and it's just those small things.
Yeah.
And so don't think for one second you're not making a difference, because I know you are. You're making a
I
big
hope so.
difference. And I think over the last few weeks, you've made a tremendous impact on a lot of people.
Thank you.
Um, and I'm glad that you were able to come and tell your story the way you wanted to tell your
Thank you
story.
for
So, and I'm
having
going to
me.
hand you this because I want to make sure we covered everything
Yeah.
you want to cover,
Yeah.
because it's very important. This
And
is
I
a
I want to tell you something too on that. I've worked so many places, and it's hard when you're somewhere for 3 months. You click quickly with people, and you're like, okay, I'm here by myself. Like,
Right.
but you want to go on a hike or whatever. And so I've have friends that I have on Facebook and stuff, and they've even seen my water videos. And I had one that actually worked with me in LA. I met her in Florida, but she went with me to LA to work. And she has a baby, and she was like, I just moved. I'm in Florida living. And she's like, I'm worried about my water. What should I get?
Right.
And I'm like, an eye spring. I can tell you that for a fact with complete confidence. And that's what I wanted to be able to do was, okay, if you're going to bring some things to light, at least we got to have a solution, that people can do for
So, did you
themselves.
look at a bunch of different filtration systems
No,
before
I
you
had
just?
actually a nurse practitioner that I'm really close with. She recommended the eye spring to me because she was learning about it in her schooling.
Okay.
And it's the 6 stage is the one that you want, but it is phenomenal. Like I said, about $200, everything you need. I'm actually wanting to offer people help installing them. Like, say your grandmother wants one and you're
Right.
busy, I can send somebody out that can at least help you put it together. I don't want somebody to not get it because they're afraid
They're
they
afraid they
can't put it
can't.
together.
Yeah. I mean, I would even be willing to go help install
Right?
some.
See?
So,
And
so I think iSpring needs to kind of step up, because I've never even heard of the iSpring.
yeah, I hadn't
So,
either.
and I mean that in a good way. I think they
Well, I want
need to
them to
throw
give
a
us
code.
yeah,
Let's throw a discount code. We're gonna
I
tag. I'm gonna
agree.
tag them in this.
That'd be
You send me their
wonderful.
information so I can make
Yeah.
sure I do the correct
Yeah,
one. I don't want to tag
absolutely.
like some kind of eye spring and it'd be like for a prosthetic or something because that's my luck. But yeah, so check that list. Make sure we've covered everything because I feel like we've covered a lot, and you were able to tell your story in a totally different, unique way than you had been.
So, I told you why I wanted to become a nurse.
Yeah.
I had this moment because this is gonna kind of be. I always tell everybody I'm very transparent. I'm gonna keep it that way. That's how I live my life. Um, but I had a patient, and she's no longer living. But she was in her 40s and she no longer could walk. She had a lot of health problems, um, but was obese. And I, here at 18, I'm bebopping in the room. I'm starting out as a nurse aide, don't know what the heck I'm doing,
Right.
scared.
Yeah.
And I'm like, are you ready for your bath? And she just started sobbing. And it was because she was embarrassed. Well, then I get crying. And I was like, well, I'm scared too, actually. And I was like, you know what? We're going to do this together. We're going to do this together. And she was like, okay. And that was the day that I realized what a difference you can really be to somebody by walking into a room and just being kind.
Yeah.
And also being relatable and, saying, hey, I get it. I'm modest too. I will keep you covered up, but we're going to get you clean, girl, and we're going to have you smelling good, and we're just going to get it over with.
Right.
We're doing it together. And so it was that day that I thought, dang, if I really like this, why would I not like being a nurse? Because I am big on advocacy. Like, when we were in nursing school, and they really drive that home to advocate. And so it's got me in trouble sometimes, not really, but
Right. I know what you're
maybe
saying. Yeah.
I can remember sometimes on the phone with doctors. I just had to tell a physician who was coming to the bedside of my patient who was about to code. He just stumbled in and's like mumbling under his breath orders. Well, if you take CPR or ACLS, you
Right.
have to have a code leader. You need to speak up, you need to speak clear. We're going to repeat back what you said just to validate that that's correct. And he was just mumbling, and I just couldn't help myself. Really was I've never done this before, but I was like, I'm sorry, are you giving orders right now? Because if you are, you need to speak up because we can't hear you. And it was my first night at work. I'd never worked there before. And I walked out and I thought, oh crap. And I was like, I don't care.
Yeah. I
I don't
mean,
care. Speak up, sir. So we give the right med. And it was so funny because
that
the
is
rest of
crazy.
the time he keeps looking at my badge. And I
Yeah.
was about to say Kirk.
Right.
Spell it right. Get it right.
Right.
Because I've got things to say too. But I'm sorry. I want you to come in and I want you to care. I'd sat with that 92-year-old patient for 2 hours before he ever showed up to the bedside with no care in the world.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is BS.
Yeah.
And it's funny because everybody's in there because we've got the crash card in, and I didn't know this respiratory therapist, but like I said, my mom was one,
Yeah.
and she was like, I don't know who you are, but I like you. And I'm so embarrassed. I can't believe I did that. And she was like, nope, loved it. And
I
I
mean,
was like,
sometimes it's needed, you
yeah,
know.
but like, so I've always been that person. Like, even with my mom, like the way everything went down with my mom, she was having stroke-like symptoms before she had her seizure for an hour, and I told the nurse. She was a travel nurse, and I mean, I had to tell her. I'm sure they did not like me.
Right.
But I found the nurse manager. I pretended that I thought she was the charge nurse. I knew better. I knew what office she came out of.
Right.
I was
Right.
calculated. Whatever. And I said, "Are you the charge nurse?" And she was like, "No, but she's over." I said, "No, I think I want to talk to you." I was like, "Does this look like a facial droop to you?" And she was like, "Yes, ma'am." And I said, "Been happening for an hour. I haven't had one physician at my mother's bedside. I don't care that she has stage 4 cancer. I want her treated the same as everybody else." And she was like, "We'll be right there." And I was like, "Perfect." And so by the time I'm telling my dad, I'm tapping on his shoulder because I was afraid she's going to have a
Right.
massive stroke, or, she ended up being a seizure. We were already having some mini strokes. And I'm like tapping my dad on the shoulder. We got to go get Michael. We got to go get my brother. We got to go get Michael. And so he sent me to go get my brother. And that's when the travel nurse has picked up the phone and she's like, "Yes, I'd like to call a rapid response to room blank." And I'm thinking, about time. But that's how I am.
Yeah.
There's right, especially with medicine. There are people out here that do not have somebody to advocate for them. And so at the bedside, I can't tell you how many times I've shut a door and said, "You need another chest x-ray. Don't know why you haven't had one. I'm going to pass it along because I'm night shift and the doctors aren't here when I'm here. But you tell them." And if you get a little ugly, it's okay. They'll probably do it quicker.
Right. Yeah.
Like, I'm just honest. And that's why my patients and I connect so well.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many patients I've given my cell phone number
Well,
to.
I think just from talking to you, you're very passionate about. It seems like all your choices, all your decisions are passionate and
I love people.
thought out. You know, you're not. I haven't picked up anything that says you're out. You know, I'm doing this for myself. Like
Oh,
everything
no.
you've done
Lord,
is
no.
for other
We would
people.
not be here.
But just remember to take care of yourself though, because you can lose that. You know,
Thank
and you don't
you.
want to lose that.
I'm
So
trying. I think the biggest thing, like with grief and loss, is it is a journey. It's a roller coaster. So, with me being an emotional person, like, I sometimes know that it's healthy for me to let those emotions out, and then I
yeah,
can be free of them,
yeah.
at least for a little bit.
Yeah, and just
So,
you know, and it's tough, especially in the medical field, first responders, EMS, fires, police, you know, all
yes,
that whole world.
yes. Gosh, it's
Um,
hard.
a lot of us keep it to ourselves, and we don't
Hmm.
have anybody to share it with. So make sure you find somebody that,
My friends are tired of
yeah,
me.
I guarantee
They're
it.
tired
Yeah,
of me.
yeah. Oh, I guarantee you, they still be like, "Yeah, any good stories?" You know,
Yeah, oh yeah,
mine
oh
do
yeah.
too. So, is there anything else you want to touch on before we roll
Uh,
out?
no, I
End it.
think this.
I think this has been really well. This is a
Yeah,
very informative.
my goal is I hope to start working with the EPA deeper, and put out this survey. Um, I also, the mayor, there's a facility in Louisville that I had kind of proposed during the city council meeting that I've been offered to take a tour of. There's kind of some neat stuff they're doing as
Okay.
far as like some of the revised, like the Lead and Copper Act.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Um, the EPA is revising that. It'll be finished sometime in 2025. But, Louisville is a great example of how they're kind of trying to get ahead of that and buy filtration systems to already have in stock so they can send it out for the safety of the community. But again, as I say that, they already are aware of it.
Yeah.
They're just waiting for the law
Just
to come
waiting for it,
into effect. And
I
the thing
think
with the TTHMs, that has not been revised for 22 years. We've left that maximum
where?
contaminant level by the EPA at 80
Wow.
for 22 years, and there's litigation going on right now in Fort Campbell about PFAs. And the two things that they felt pertinent enough to mention to be
Right.
harmful, we've tested positive for every time. And they're actually dropping that, what used to be that maximum contaminant level of 70 to 4.
Oh wow.
How wonderful would it be to have
4.
a TTHM level from 80 to now 15?
Right.
Like, there's got to be a solution. But I believe the chlorine in the environment that we are in, with all the toxic chemicals that are released into the atmosphere and into the water, greatly affects what is reacting with that chlorine and causing these disinfection byproducts. I think it's putting us at more risk, and they don't care.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy. I think my big motto is be proactive, not reactive. You
Yeah,
know,
that's hard
if
for
we
me when
start,
you're emotional.
it
I'm
it
usually
is.
both.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
But if these companies, I mean, they ought to know. Things change. Things, it takes things become acclimated to stuff. Like antibiotics. You take an antibiotic all the time, it's going to obviously stop working eventually. So you've got to kind of change your game. So if you're proactive and not reactive to a
Well,
situation,
and the
then
thing is, too, that maximum contaminant level, what they say about it is wild to me, because they say if you have these disinfection byproducts at that top level, that 80, with the HAAs, it's 60. If you drink 2 liters of water a day for 70 years, you will not have any health defects from that. Now tell me how that makes freaking
it
sense.
makes no sense at all.
Yeah, sounds like a made up rule to me.
Yeah, that's
And
weird.
so, like, I'm not going to believe that.
Yeah,
I don't believe that. The only thing my mother drank was tap water. She drank it from the refrigerator. She made her tea from the sink.
yeah.
She made her grape and lemonade Kool-Aid from the sink. And lemon water she would make from the fridge. That's all the woman drank.
Yeah.
So, it's going to be very hard to connect dots to much, but, I could tell you 3.5 hours from here, there's people that don't know hardly anybody with cancer. Our story around here is completely different
It
from
is.
theirs.
It is. Just from what?
And,
Yeah.
so I just really want the EPA to come, like, take a look, see what they would advise us to do, and just kind of make some progress in some kind of form to obviously, you know, treat something that's been going on for a long time around our area.
Yeah. Wow. So Megan Kirk, it's been a pleasure talking to you. It
Thank you.
has. And your new adventure, your new business adventure is Magnolia House
Beauty Co.
Beauty Co. And that's gonna be, where's that gonna be located at?
It'll be Marion.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna do it in Edible, but that's not where I want to be. I want to be in
Be at
Marion.
home. Yeah.
I love, you know, you might come in for a 2 hour IV infusion and we end up talking for an hour. Like,
Yeah.
I love that, so it's been so fun, and it's a whole different aspect of nursing to where I love to start IVs. I was back in the era, a 10-year nurse. Like, now, if they're a hard stick, is what we call them,
Right.
we get a hold of the IV team, and
Yeah, they
they'll
got
get
IV
it
therapy.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I didn't have that luxury back then,
Right.
so I got good at doing it myself. And so, yeah, it's just, I want it to be a safe place for people to come and, um, know that I care. I think that's important.
Yeah.
And, be transparent and have a comfortable environment for them to do other things besides take a pill.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Well, that's cool. So we may revisit this after you get your business up and running in a few months. I'd like to have you come back and talk about it.
Yeah,
Just see
feel
how it's
free
going,
because
because that would be really
well,
cool. That would
it's
be neat.
amazing right now.
So iSpring water filtration,
Yes, whole house
whole
is
house.
spring well.
Okay.
I'll send you all of this too.
Yeah, send it all to me because I'll put it in probably either like the end of the credits or something like that. I'll put it
Yeah,
in there,
yeah,
so people will. I mean, I don't care if they fast forward just to get that. If they can take anything away from this, it'd be great. But
yeah.
send me all that information because I like to get that out there and let people know about it. What was it? The
Life
water.
straw.
No, the
Oh,
water
tap
test
score.
tap score.
Yes,
So we'll get that. Just yeah, send me your information. We'll
I
get
will.
that.
Absolutely will.
Let me know when you're up and running because I'm probably gonna be hollering at you for some IV
I'm
therapy, and
in
we're gonna
like
try it.
8 weeks
So
in,
yeah. Oh wow.
and
So you're up.
yeah, I did
You're
really good my
rolling.
first month, and I have tripled that this month alone.
Wow.
So it's going really good. I'm excited. I actually I just felt God telling me put your all in this, and I
Yeah.
quit my ICU job.
Wow.
So yeah, I am all in.
Oh, I've said this several times too. Matthew McConaughey talks about in his book Green Lights, which is an awesome book. If you're a book
Oh,
reader or if
I
you
am
listen to him,
okay.
check out
I
Green
love
Lights. And
him.
I'm not pitching this for anything, but it's just I really enjoy this
And it's
book.
called what?
Green Lights.
Green lights.
Yeah,
Okay.
Matthew McConaughey said, when I decided that I didn't want to be a lawyer, and I told my dad I wanted to go into being a film guy or being in the movies, his dad said, "Don't half-ass it," and that's like, and it's stuck with me ever since I've heard that. I mean, because it makes so much sense.
Yeah.
If you're passionate about something, why would you want to do that?
Right.
Why would you want
Right.
to half-ass anything? So, and I
Jump
could tell
in.
you're not doing it. You're
I
you're
don't.
all in
I
it. Like,
yeah. I really sometimes it's a problem, and
yeah,
I'm trying,
no, I
but
get it.
at the same time, it's a blessing too because I just yeah, I'm just going with the flow.
Oh, good.
If I feel led to do something, I just can't not ignore it. God's been so good to me. I want to give Him really all the glory.
Yeah,
Just me sitting here being able to talk to you, even though like I know we're recording right now, like honestly, typically I would be very very nervous. You could tell it.
yeah.
I did a for nursing school. We talked in front of this group of second graders, and I was the pep talker of my group of students that was with me. And I was like, guys, it's second graders. Who cares?
Right.
Like, just hold your paper and just read it. Well, we got up there, and I was the only one. I couldn't hold my paper
Just
still. I'm not kidding. I couldn't hold my paper still, and my voice was shaking, and all the second graders are like
like
looking at
freaking
me.
out. Like, what's
Yeah.
going on with
And
this
so we
girl?
get out, and my classmates look at me, and they're like, "You were the most confident one." That's what I don't know what happened. I
That's
don't
good.
know. So like that's what I'm saying.
Well,
Like
good.
this is God. I feel led to do this. I feel like I have the knowledge. Anybody can learn anything.
Right.
And so be your own detective. Go out and look. Any information I provide, go fact check it. I usually have a piece of paper that shows you where to go, what the title is. Like, we're in this together. You matter.
That's good.
I want to end it on
That's
that.
good. We can do that. So until next time, be good to each other.